Chapter 4. The Man Named M. When the man opened the curtains and stepped into their private booth, Len at first thought he was a bear. He was enormous, towering over them at 6'4". He wore camo pants in a venomous green, brown, and black pattern, and a brown t-shirt. There wasn't a single piece of combat gear on him, which only served to underscore his innate physical menace. Not only was he tall, his chest was wide and stout. In fact, it almost looked like he was equipped with bulletproof plating under the skin of his pecs. The arms bulging from his shirt sleeves were like logs and probably as wide as Len's waist. What made him even more bear-like was his head. His wavy brown, dark hair grazed his shoulders and covered his skull with a mop. His shaved countenance was as craggy as a rock face. His eyes were on the larger side, but they didn't make him look any nicer. He appeared to be quite old, at least 40. The avatar's visible age and the player's age had no connection, of course, so he could have been a teenager for all she knew, or he might have been a grandpa in his 80s. In a reflection of GDO's American origins, massive bodybuilder avatars like this one weren't uncommon. She'd seen them around the city before, but it was quite frightening for her to be this close to one. The funny thing was, if he were a newbie player with low strength, even a giant like him might be unable to carry guns that Len was able to equip. But Pitahui did vouch for his toughness, so that was unlikely. He was probably at least as good as she was, if not more of a veteran player. "Hey, you're late, jackass."
"Sorry, Pito, but I took care of all the errands,"
the man said. Even this simple statement terrified Len. She'd never met such a large human being in her life. It was giving her flashbacks to the time she was at the zoo as a toddler and saw a bear through the glass of the exhibit. She was ready to bow out, to claim that she couldn't perform with such a terrifying partner, but that would be rude to both of them, and she'd already made the decision to play. Besides, he was going to be her partner, not her opponent. Fine. Sit over here," Pitahui said, getting up and showing him to her empty seat. The large man switched places with her and squished uncomfortably into the bench seat across from Len. "Here we go, Len. This pointlessly and idiotically large fellow here." Len felt a stab of pain in her heart. That was exactly what people thought of her in real life. But Pitahui didn't know that and couldn't be blamed for it. The whole point of VR games was to hide your real self. "Is your partner in this event? Go on and introduce yourselves." Pitahui's attitude towards the man was extremely overbearing. Whatever their relationship was, Len got the sense that she had a considerably higher status than him in real life. The man bowed.
"It's nice to meet you. My name's M."
That was it. He looked scary, but his mannerisms were polite and proper. Out of a lifetime of social habit, Len bowed in return and said, "Nice to meet you too. I'm Len." They fell silent. Clearly, the man named M was not as sociable as Pitahui. "Wow, this is awkward. It's a good thing Pito's here to break the ice between us," Len thought. "Well, I've got errands to run now. The rest is up to you two youngsters," Pitahui said abruptly, like the go-between for a meeting between two parties in an arranged marriage. "Huh? Wait," Len started to say, but the other woman was already gone. All that remained was an unbearable discomfort. It wasn't because she was alone with a man. Physical contact with the opposite sex in a VR game activated a harassment warning. If such contact continued, the offender would be penalized and possibly lose their account. Since puberty, Karen had hardly had any one-on-one interactions with men, and that hardly was thanks to her two older brothers and her sister's husband, so at the very least, she wasn't completely terrified into silence around the opposite sex. And yet, she wasn't any type of mood to lead the conversation. Not when her conversation partner looked like he was liable to bite her head off and swallow it whole. At the same time, her reaction registered in her mind as the same thing people felt about her in real life, which only increased her self-loathing. Len stared down at the table, suddenly wishing she could log out and get away from here.
Listen, M said in an anxious, stammering voice. Let's try not to be too nervous about this, shall we? I mean, let's be frank. If I act too polite and stuffy, Peter will build me up later.
Oh, he's scared too, Len realized with some relief. Although violence was not a good thing by any means, the mental image of Pita Hui beating up this massive specimen of a man was a little bit funny to her. Good point. Let's be casual then. It was a rule in the Kohurumaki house that one must look at the other person in the eyes while speaking. Her parents ran a business, so this was of utmost importance to them. Len looked into the eyes of that craggy face and said, I agreed to take part in this event, so I intend to do my best. It's a pleasure to work with you, M.
Sounds good. If we want to win, we've got to work together. Let's do our best, Len. Is it okay if I call you that? I'm not so good with, cutesy nicknames.
Len nodded. M was turning out to be much less frightening than he looked. Again, she wondered what kind of person was controlling this frightening fellow, and had to summon her self-control to drop that train of thought. If she thought too much about it, she'd blurt it out.
What did Pito tell you about this? What were you talking about before I showed up?
M asked, a bit more comfortable now that he had received his iced coffee from the hole in the table. Len decided she would treat him like a friendly uncle, someone older that she could speak to in a familiar manner. She went over the rules for the squadron, explained the radio comm, and for some reason she said that I was squad leader.
Ah, okay. And did she tell you the reason she put you and me together today?
Nope. Len shook her head. It was a good question. Why had Pituhui put the two of them together? She never said why. She just asked whether Len was available for about 3 hours, starting at 9 o'clock on Friday night. It was nice that she wanted to introduce Len to M before the event, since Pituhui would be busy at the wedding on that big day, but who needed 3 hours for a couple of introductions? It would be one thing for the three ventured out to do some monster battling as a little meet and greet, but Pituhui just scampered off as soon as they were both there.
Good grief, he said,
sighing with a weak smile. The sight of that menacing face smiling put a strange thought into Len's mind. Oh, he can smile. They do have graphics for a smiling face like that.
Well, neither of us know what the other is capable of. Pito gave me a brief rundown of your abilities, but I'd like to go out to the practice grounds and see for myself.
The practice grounds were just what they sounded like. There was a selection of different terrain and building samples to move around in, and unlike an indoor shooting range, you could practice actual mobility on battlefield terrain and long-range sniping. If you set each player to no damage, you could even run combat practice. Best of all, you didn't have to worry about monsters or the other players ambushing you. On the other hand, you did have to reserve the time, and the cost was considerable. Ah, I see. Still, there's just one thing I can't help but wonder.
What's that?
Why am I the leader? I mean, you don't have to see me in action to know I'm not good enough to lead. Len protested. Em looked down at her and smiled.
Don't worry. We decided on that for a reason.
I'll be the one calling the shots. Cam returned to the real world just before Friday turned into Saturday. She stretched her larger body, regaining the more familiar sensations, then got her feet and switched on the light. She looked over at the black P90 hanging on her wardrobe. I guess that was a tryout to join the team? She mumbled to herself. For about 2.5 hours, M made Len do all sorts of things. First, they'd gone to the practice grounds they had already reserved, which was a wasteland of rocks and abandoned vehicles, all set under that oddly colored sky. In the distance were tilted buildings and a mountain with a crater in it. It didn't look any different from the usual environs. There was a distance limit of a bit over a mile in any directions. At that point, an invisible wall would appear with a no further progress warning.
Put on all your gear. I'll give you the comm too, M said.
Len had gone into her game window and materialized the equipment she had in her item storage, the pink combat suit and her P90. Changing outfits required briefly stripping down to underwear, but since she had the hooded cloak on, she could perform the command in an instant without any trouble. From that point on, she'd gone through a gauntlet of commands.
There's a barrel 40 yards ahead. Face it and shoot from a standing position. 10 slow shots on semi-auto, then 10 more as fast as possible. The last 30 on full auto. It's 200 yards to that burned-out truck. Hard rock underfoot. Sprint for it with your P90 in your hand. Touch the truck, then sprint back here. Now, fire while running. Sprint toward the barrel, and on my command, shoot your entire magazine, full auto, at a run. When you have under 8 rounds left, switch it out at once. How many yards to that pointy rock there, by your estimate? How far into the hole behind that?
All of these made sense to her. He was getting her capability in battle. But then,
there's nothing ahead of you. Close your eyes and walk. Just a normal walk at a normal pace. When I give the command, turn at an angle, I say. Walk slow, walk normal, trot, run. Switch between them on my command. Lie face down on the ground. After a minute has passed, I will give a signal without warning. I want you to get to the feet and run in the direction I say. Then lie down again until the next command. Walk backward as fast as you can. There are rocks, so if and when you trip, flip backward and get down on your stomach. Crouch down into a ball, as small as you can go, then roll down a slope.
By that point, Len had no idea what he was getting out of these exercises. There was no physical exhaustion in a VR game, no matter how much activity you did. If your brain gave the order to run at a full sprint, your body would keep going as easily as if you were holding down the sprint button on a controller. On the other hand, Len certainly felt mental fatigue from all the baffling orders, but she eagerly performed them all.
Okay, got it. Thanks,
he said. She figured that was the end of it, but then M went into his inventory and called forth his own gun. It was a freakish rifle, large and long, with many jutting protrusions. Len thought it looked like some kind of power tool at a construction site. It also had a sturdy bipod and scope. The gun was painted in a brown-green camo pattern. Between the chipped paint and the worn spots here and there, it had clearly seen a lot of use.
Is that your main gun, Em? I've never seen one. What's it called?
She asked, thinking that it looked strong and heavy and was probably beyond her ability to use.
It's an M14 EBR,
he'd explained once he was done checking it over. He'd set it down at his feet and continued pulling out more pieces of gear.
EBR stands for Enhanced Battle Rifle. In other words, it's an advanced version of the old M14 rifle. 7.62mm rounds. She recalled what Pitahui had taught her about bullet sizes.
So your battle style is
mid-range shooting at semi-auto? She'd asked. Len knew how many different facts about guns that she hadn't a clue about before she started playing GGO. What she learned from the tutorial and from Pitahui's lesson was that the gun's effective range differed by caliber and by the type of gun within a single caliber. So it was always worth paying attention to the type and caliber of one's own gun versus the opponent's. A rough description of the effective range would be the maximum distance that one can aim and inflict damage. The maximum range, which was the longest physical distance a gun could fire a bullet, was a different term with a completely different meaning. When it came to 7.62mm bullets, they were powerful and best suited to mid-range shooting.
That's true. I prefer to fight out in the open, keeping some distance from the enemy. Of course, I'll still use the EBR up close, but for combat indoors, I'll switch to this.
A reinforced plastic holster had appeared on M's right thigh. A large, black, automatic pistol was inside. M had put the M14 EBR into his sling and pulled the pistol out of the holster. Guns extracted from the inventory didn't come preloaded, so he pulled the slide with his left hand and loaded the first bullet into the chamber. Then he had pushed his thumb upward to engage the safety mechanism and displayed the side of the gun to Len.
This is a German HK-45 from Heckler & Koch. It's a 45 caliber automatic. Capacity, 10 rounds. If you raise this lever to the right, that's the safety. Set it flat, and you can fire. It's good to know how it works, because you might end up needing to use it.
M's explanation was much more in-depth than what he'd said about the M14 EBR, but Len didn't think it was going to be necessary. Still, she had committed the operation to memory, put the little lever up, and the safety was on. GGO players hardly ever use the safety. Unlike in the real world, where such a feature was absolutely necessary, this was just a game. The benefit of instant use far outweighed the danger of it going off without warning. That was what Len always did. When she left the safety of town, she loaded her P90 and had the selector safety set to full auto. While on the move, she would have her index finger extended off the trigger, and when it came time to shoot, she used the fine control of the trigger to fire bursts of 3 to 5 shots. M had put the HK-45 back into the holster, then brought out some more equipment. In addition to his considerable muscle, he had a vest lined with bulletproof plates and a backpack large enough for mountain climbing, which only increased his world-class bulk. On his head was a boonie hat in the same camo pattern as his clothes. Pouches on his vest bulged with magazines for the M14 EBR. Given his size, there was room for plenty, at least 8. Limited ammo wasn't something he needed to worry about. The backpack was bulging, and she didn't know what was inside of it, but she had to assume it was more battle equipment, not picnic baskets. When he was done gearing up, he said,
"Now I'm going to have you take distances of 25, 50, and 100 yards.
Uh-huh. Then what?
I'm going to fire the EBR in a variety of directions. Before I fire, I'll tell you the direction."
Okay. And what am I supposed to do? Just run away?
Len asked, afraid she was going to be target practice.
"I want you to listen carefully and remember the sound," he said, to her surprise.
The sound? Of the gun?
That's right. You might already be aware that the close-range gunfire in GGO is significantly quieter than the real thing.
Len nodded. Pitahui had told her that already. GGO was famous for its realistic depiction of guns, but the volume was one thing that wasn't treated as utterly realistic. Otherwise, it'd be impossible for anyone to have a conversation in a gunfight, and you'd wind up with an outbreak of players with hearing difficulties.
But even though the volume of the gunfire has been lowered to the point that it won't cause hearing loss, the changes to the sound in terms of direction and distances are realistic. So if you want to get used to it, you can start to tell how far away an opponent is when they shoot at you, just from the sound.
Oh, I see.
You're going to learn the differences in sound at various distances until you get the hang of what direction and how far off a gun is shooting. Once I've shot enough times, then I'll make you close your eyes. I'll move around and fire without giving you a heads up. Then I want you to guess the distance and direction as accurately as you can. Len thought this sounded tough, but she didn't have much choice in the matter. It was better than getting shot. If the last set was a gym test, this one was music class.
Got it.
When we're done with that, we'll repeat the process with obstacles like rocks, cars, and structures in between. You need to remember the differences in the sound between them all.
This sounds impossible,
she screamed in her mind. On Saturday, the day after her tryout, Karen had nothing on her schedule, aside from some studying for class, which she finished up in the morning. Without anything else to do, she wound up glancing at the atmosphere hanging on the side of her bed.
Maybe not today,
she said, opting out of GGO. She could go hunting monsters on her own, but if she got attacked by another player, there was a possibility she might fail to get away and end up dead. Len was confident in her ability to run, but there could be even faster foes out there. When a character died, all that happened was a death penalty, loss of experience point, after which you returned to town. However, on rare occasions, the player suffered a random drop, leaving their gun or other gear behind on the spot. In that case, you need a friend to pick it up, or else you lose it forever. Len had no teammates, so the consequences were obvious. With an important event coming up in just another day, she would be letting Pitahui and M down if she lost her crucial P90. In the end, she did nothing that afternoon. She'd be getting all the action she wanted the next day.
There's nothing like Elsa Kanzaki.
Len sighed, relaxing to the sound of the singer she was missing out on tomorrow. Elsa Kanzaki was a singer-songwriter, so she had her own originals, but many of her songs were arrangements of classical pieces of music. Karen was a fan of the classical genre, so this was one of the reasons she liked Elsa. As she listened, she wondered why Elsa Kanzaki wouldn't put on concerts at bigger venue. Then she had an idea.
Dear Miss Elsa Kanzaki.
She would write a fan letter. She had some cute stationery and envelopes from when her niece had come over to hang out. It was the first time she had ever written a fan letter, but the words mysteriously flowed out of her pen. The next thing she knew, she was writing about how she had a complex about her height, and that in order to cope with it, she was playing VR games with a tiny player avatar. She followed up by saying that she loved Elsa's singing voice and was hoping to hear it in person. So would she please consider performing a concert in a larger place? When Karen was done, she ate dinner, then read over what she had written. Even she had to admit she overshared a bit, and she felt embarrassed about it. But then she realized that Elsa would probably never read it anyway, so she decided to send it. It was made out to Elsa Kanzaki's agency in the hopes that she might one day actually receive a reply. Karen wrote her own name and address on the back of the envelope. When Len was sealing her fan letter to Elsa Kanzaki with a cute little sticker, people from all over Japan were eagerly looking forward to tomorrow's tournament. In one case, there were 5 guys on the internet called together.
The time's finally come for us to shine. It's happening tomorrow.
Yeah, we're gonna kick some ass. That's right. We might not have been born on the same day, but we sure as hell are going to die together. No thanks, man. You die first. I'll leave your body, but I'll keep your gear.
You suck!
Sorry to ruin your fun, but SJ's just like Bob. There's no random drops.
Ah, lame. You didn't even know that? You're the worst. It's called a joke. I'm lightening the mood.
One day, I'm gonna shoot you in the back.
Look, let's just have some fun with this thing. Like we're doing right now. They set up this weird tournament to try out. And given that we're all failed to pass the preliminary round of the BOB 3 times running, maybe it's finally our time to be the stars. Yeah, maybe we'll actually be successful in a team competition.
Yes, let's do this. We can last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Elsewhere, a man spoke to a group of 6 other men. Tomorrow's the big day, but since this is just an experiment, it doesn't particularly matter if you do well or not. Given your skill level, I expect you'll get pretty far. But if it looks like you're going to win, resign and quit the game as we discussed. I look forward to seeing your results. Meanwhile, another online voice chat was happening, this time with a group of women.
It's coming up tomorrow. Don't forget to log in. Especially, I know. Boss is gonna call me tomorrow. Yeah, because you're always late. But at least now we get to shoot some people. We've come this far. There's no way we'll stop at anything less than the championship. We want that prize. Nothing less, right? Of course. Got it. Let's do this. I know we can win. Tomorrow's the big day. Good luck, darling. Don't worry if you die. You only die as long as you maintain this level of nerves, everything will work out just fine. It's okay. It's fine. Look how early it is. Let's do it again.
But won't that have an effect on your work tomorrow? I'm not that much of a pushover. And what's your excuse? Are you too old for another round, darling? Thus, Saturday ran its course. At the stroke of midnight, it was officially Squad Jam Day. Let the battle begin.